Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're breaking down the ultimate heavyweight bout, Android 17 versus iOS 27. We are looking at a completely fascinating moment in mobile tech. It's a year where both Apple and Google have just dropped massive, game-changing updates, and we're going to help you decide which ecosystem truly reigns supreme.
We're looking at a year where those infamous walled gardens are literally crumbling. These two tech giants, they're borrowing heavily from one another. So we're moving way past the usual fanboy arguments today. Instead, let's objectively look at the data, the features, and the core design philosophies from our sources to figure out who copied who, and honestly, who actually did it better. Here's our roadmap for today. We'll set the stage with the 2026 smartphone war, dive deep into the AI arms race, tackle how each handles true multitasking, watch those ecosystem walls break down, and finally, declare which update actually takes the crown based on your lifestyle. All right, round one. Let's set the stage for this 2026 smartphone war. Because before we even touch the software, we really have to talk about the hardware ecosystems these platforms actually live on.
And this number tells a huge part of the story. Think about it. You can pick up a highly capable, totally respectable Android phone like the Samsung Galaxy A16 for under $200. But Apple's ecosystem, it's a completely different beast. Their absolute cheapest entry point is the iPhone 16e at $599, and the lineup caps out at a staggering $1,999 for the 2TB iPhone 17 Pro Max. That is a massive gap in hardware accessibility. Android is basically championing open customization across countless manufacturers, while iOS firmly retains its tightly curated, super premium vibe.
Moving on to round two, the AI arms race, where it's proactive versus subtle. This is where we see the absolute biggest philosophical differences between Google and Apple's game plans. Both completely revamped their assistants this year, but wow, did they take opposite paths to get there.
You can really notice this stark contrast in their approaches right off the bat. Android is pushing bold, proactive AI, weaving Gemini into the OS with these glowing, smoky animations that literally make your phone feel alive. Apple, on the flip side, makes Apple Intelligence almost invisible. They've baked it so subtly into everyday tools that half the time there isn't even a label telling you AI is running. It just feels like a regular feature that happens to work perfectly.
To really wrap your head around Android's approach, you've got to look at this incredible feature called Gemini Spark. It acts like an actual hands-on personal assistant. It physically navigates apps for you while you just sit back and watch. You literally just tell it to book an Uber. It opens the app, types in your address, picks the correct airline, and then just stops right at the final step. You don't lift a single finger until it's time to confirm and pay. It is an absolute boundary-pushing leap in how we interact with our screens.
Now, when it comes to voice dictation, Android's new Rambler feature seamlessly cleans up messy phrasing. You can pause, stutter, or even casually drop some Spanglish mid-sentence, and Rambler perfectly formats the whole shebang. Meanwhile, over on iOS 27, Siri gets a stunning visual redesign. It's this sleek, dark glass UI that pops right out of the dynamic island, and you can actually customize Siri's tone and pace now. And here's a crazy, ironic twist for you. While Siri uses Apple's own foundation models, it was actually partially trained using reinforcement learning from Google's Gemini outputs. Talk about a quiet collaboration behind the scenes, right?
Both platforms are just packed with brilliant everyday AI tools to iron out life's little kinks. Apple brings some hyper-specific magic, like a Safari Notify Me feature that alerts you the exact second a specific shoe size is restocked, or Reframe, which magically lets you change the angle of a photo you already took. Insane! Android counters hard with Gemini Autofill, instantly yanking complex passport data into web forms. Plus, you can literally just describe a widget you want and watch Gemini completely custom build it for your home screen on the fly.
Okay. Let's pivot to Section 3, Mastering True Multitasking. Because let's be real, all this incredible power means absolutely nothing if you can't access it efficiently.
And this is a direct head-to-head clash of design. Android is leaning hard into floating windows for simultaneous multitasking. They call them bubbles. You can long press almost any third-party app and pop it out into a bubble, kind of like using a desktop PC. It's perfect for watching a tutorial while taking notes. Apple, though, they are intentionally dodging floating windows. Instead, they're maximizing utility right on the home screen with these stackable, extra-large widgets. They take up the entire page, giving you dense, interactive blocks of information right at a glance. These core philosophies bleed right into the everyday quality of life tweaks too. iOS finally separated its volume sliders for alarms, alerts, and media. Plus, you can now launch Spotlight Search just by swiping down from the dynamic island, and even resize Control Center tiles. Android, meanwhile, brought back full-screen lock screen widgets, lets you force dark mode on apps that stubbornly refuse to support it, looking at you, Amazon, and even rolled out a 50/50 foldable gaming mode that turns the bottom half of your foldable screen into a dedicated gamepad. But for content creators, Android definitively takes the crown here, with a feature called Screen Reactions. It's totally wild. It completely bypasses the need for third-party editing apps. You can record your screen while your front-facing camera records you, and it automatically cuts you out from your background like a built-in green screen. You just move yourself around the screen to make quick, engaging commentary for TikTok or YouTube Shorts effortlessly.
Which brings us to Section 4, breaking down ecosystem walls, the great convergence. So, what actually happens when an iPhone and an Android need to, talk to each other?
Well, the ecosystem walls are finally coming down. In a genuinely shocking move, Apple is now allowing AirDrop to share entire photo albums directly to Android devices and Windows PCs. No way, right? They've also drastically improved RCS messaging. This means cross-platform texting finally works properly. iPhone users can use emoji reactions and threaded replies directly with their Android friends. Blue and green bubbles are finally playing nice. Android is firing right back with Continue On, which is their version of Apple's handoff. It can even launch web app versions of your work if your secondary Android device doesn't have the native app installed.
Both systems are also deeply looking out for you in the real world. iOS 27 lets you scan a restaurant receipt with your camera, automatically splits the bill, and requests the cash via Apple Cash right in your group chat. Talk about a lifesaver. Android is focusing heavily on digital well-being with Pause Point. Instead of just aggressively locking you out of a distracting app, it gently pauses for a few seconds to suggest a healthier habit, like a quick breathing exercise. Android also introduced a powerful biometric lock for stolen phones, ensuring thieves absolutely cannot access your data even if they somehow know your passcode.
All right, Section 5. We've tallied the scorecards across hardware prices, AI, multitasking, and ecosystem convergence. That brings us to the ultimate question. Which update actually wins the heavyweight bout?
Our sources highlight a really clear divide in what these updates actually accomplish. If you want mind-blowing, proactive innovation that actively changes how you interact with your device, Android 17 feels like a massive, boundary-pushing leap forward. Features like Gemini Spark, physically completing tasks for you, represent an entirely new era of smartphone usage.
However, if you prefer a polished, frictionless experience, a world where AI quietly irons out the kinks in the background without constantly demanding your attention, iOS 27 is an absolute masterclass in restraint and refinement. From that beautiful new Siri interface to incredibly thoughtful additions like separated volume sliders and camera bill splitting, it just makes your daily life seamlessly easier.
So as we wrap up this explainer, we want to leave you with this final thought to ponder. Does a proactive, screen-controlling powerhouse like Android 17 or the refined, subtle, background usability of iOS 27 better fit your lifestyle in 2026? Because honestly, the choice is no longer about which ecosystem traps you better. It's about which philosophy genuinely empowers you more.